warriors for freedom in this Christmas season as I continue and hopefully finish up my testimony before the end of the year for a lot of you guys who wondered why I'm talking about sexual addiction. What qualifies me to talk about it? Well, I can tell you the first thing that qualifies me is that the generational curses that was upon my life because of generations of sexual addicts in my family, unconfessed sins, the enemy's right to literally wreak havoc on the Lockhart generation, bloodline, which I'm from, was something I was not aware of. I was in ignorance about. So my goal is to educate every man, number one, beginning in my family, about the struggle with addiction, the struggle with the spirit of Jezebel, as one of my nephews called it, the struggle with the spirits, a lot of different, contracts, covenants, agreements that was made going back hundreds of years. And I'm not going to go into that here because that's a whole different subject. But as I confess to you and I begin to share my testimony, we overcome by the word of our testimony, by the blood of the Lamb, okay, and loving not our lives even unto death. So my goal is not to protect myself, my image, the things that I quote unquote think I have to lose, because I have nothing to lose, because I have everything to gain when I give it to Christ and I release it to Him. It's His anyway, it's not mine. My life is not mine. So I just want to continue my testimony. This is I guess Facebook 6 of my story and my testimony. And yesterday I ended with basically the lie, okay? And today I'm going to start it when I actually hit what I considered my bottom. I mean, I had a lot of bottoms, but this was the bottom of bottoms, okay? And so as I share this with you today, I hope it encourages you. I hope it lets you know wherever you find yourself, okay, as an addict, and wherever you find yourself as a man, whether you're living secrets, living lies, living pretending, living with a mask, I want you to know that that does not define you. What defines you was the purpose for which God put you on this earth. The book of your life that was written before the day you were born. And guess what? The devil wants to kill you, to destroy you, and he wants to sift you like wheat, like Jesus told Peter. Essentially, Satan asks for a legal right to destroy Peter's purpose and existence. And a lot of times we have contributed and continue to contribute to that in our lives because of our sins, because of the contracts we've made with the dark side, because of our addictions, whatever they might be. Not just sexual addiction. What I'm talking about, I'm a sexual addict, but I've got friends that are drug addicts, alcohol addicts, workaholic addicts, and a lot of times when we talk about sexual addict, it clears the room, and it's not the popular thing to discuss, especially in the church, okay? And some people don't even believe there are sexual addicts, but I want you to know, if you anesthetize the pain through something, rather than inserting Christ in your life and finding your fulfillment in Him, today you may possibly be suffering from an addiction, be it codependency, love and relationship addiction, something that fills the void, anesthetizes the pain, other than Jesus Christ, other than the God that created you for the purpose and that He designed you and that you put on flesh and came to this earth for. If you're not fulfilling it, if you find there are closed doors, shut doors, everything's falling apart in your life, perhaps you're dealing with some sort of stronghold, perhaps you're dealing with some sort of covenant with the dark side, some sort of trade that's in your life or in your bloodline. And as you continue to follow me, I'm going to give you secrets on how you're going to be able to go free. And so, but I begin with my story because I believe this validates and affirms the fact that in my own story, the transparency and the confessions that I do on Friday affirms the fact that we don't have to live in secrets. We don't have to live anymore in the dark. Okay, so back to my testimony, testimony 6, okay? It's one testimony, it's abbreviated because I got a long story, okay? Especially at my age, at 60 years old. I've been in bondage for 40 years plus, I like to say. It might be even 50 years. And my generations have struggled, but guess what? God is delivering us and setting us free. And I just heard from one of my nephews this morning, I realized that God's not just giving me revelation, but God's giving him revelation. And through that, as we become seers and we begin to see the prophetically what God is doing in our lives, the purpose for which He's created us, we'll realize that the enemy is stealing all over the place. But today, that's done. That's finished with, because God has given us insight and allowed me, humble as I am, allowed me to tap into a few little things that can bring freedom to men's lives. But here we go. My bottom came in June 2010 when my wife confronted me. yet again regarding an email account that appeared on my computer screen. She asked me whose it was, and I did not know, and I pretended I didn't know anything about it. The woman I had been involved with, physically and now battling an emotional tie with, and the denial also in the regard, begun to write me threatening letters regarding my daughter, child support, and just crazy stuff. I was getting harassing phone calls and emails at work, and I was at my wit's end. I was struggling to keep my secrets, as I call them, from my wife, and everything was spinning out of control. My wife somehow had this uncanny sense or discernment when something is going on with me, and she would begin asking these haunting questions continuously that I refused to answer, avoid answering. And when this occurred, I would begin to isolate. This was one of these times. I for years still had access to this woman's emails accounts that I kept tabs on to make sure I maintained an upper hand when she started her devious, vindictive behaviors. Somehow, I was as sick as she was as a codependent, which I did not know I was. I was maintaining informational leverage to maintain control over the insanity of the situation and the insanity of the lies that I was living, we were both living. My wife ultimately somehow found out it was an account I was accessing, and somehow hacked it and found years and years worth of emails, of communications between my daughter's mom and I that I had never wanted her to see. I was in contact with this woman and her daughter without my wife's knowledge, and I just had it where the boxes must never touch. Susan felt, and maybe still does rightfully so, feel betrayed. She asked me to explain these emails, which I refused, and she told me that she had had enough and that she was going to leave. We agreed to counseling, and I attended for a while. We started attending Christ Fellowship. And I knew God was working on me, but I wasn't sure how. Every service, my wife would go up to prayer to Pastor Brian to pray for us. She would always ask me to go, but I was in too much denial and had too much ego to even do that. So she'd go by herself. Things were deteriorating more and more every day. Finally, she told Pastor Brian, my husband's supposedly a Christian. He attends here. I'm a Catholic, and I was wondering if you guys have a Christian attorney I can utilize to condone a Christian divorce, because I believe there is no hope for me and my husband. I'm just waiting to get enough money, and I believe this sucker faster than he could spin his head around. But I want to do it with the blessing of a Christian divorce and a Christian pastor and a church. Pastor Brian at this point realized we really needed help and asked if I would consider going to recovery meetings. Amazingly enough, something in my heart said yes, I would. I started attending. It was rather small and new, and I got a lot of personal attention in men's group. And somehow, for the first time in my life, I felt I could be honest with other men about all the lies and all the secrets I had been carrying for years. When I walked through those doors, I realized I was home, and I just had to keep coming back, to keep being honest and keep being transparent, to stop being religious. It was as if recovery was the real church service for me, because I had grown up pretending in the traditional setting I could fake it with the best of men. I faked my own self out, and I believed the lie that I was okay, that everyone else was screwed up, and that I was the one being victimized by life. Talk about stinking thinking. Like one of my mentors said, Laverne's head is a terrible place to be. I really don't do well without adult supervision. Here in recovery, however, I found men who were honest and courageous, who were not phony as a counterfeit $100 bill. After a few months, a step study opened at the Gardens campus, and I started attending on Thursday nights while still attending at Royal Palm campus on Tuesday nights, and I've been coming ever since. God has truly begun a work in me. Reminds me of Philippians, where it says, he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. That has become the mantra of my daily life. I have rededicated my life to the Lord. I got involved in choir. In my addiction, I had left music out of my life. I had no desire to play music or to speak or communicate again regarding God. That part of my life was history. I thought it was over. I was so disappointed in myself, so ashamed, and had so much guilt. I had given up hope that God even wanted to use me or my talents. I wandered aimlessly through each day with my dreams stolen, my energy misappropriated. I believed the lie that there was no hope for happiness for me in this world, in my marriage and in my home. Really, the only thing I enjoyed was my kids, and I immersed myself in them and their lives. The honesty and truth I saw in them was something I craved. God truly blessed my wife and I with wonderful kids, and I knew I was screwing that up too. In the step study, I learned that I had lots of fears. I identified my core fears: fear of success, fear of other people's opinion, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of abandonment. I began to pick up some tools for my belt: the phone, accountability, my favorite, the daily moral inventory. Armed with these basics and a willingness to turn the insanity of my life over to God, I was ready to march out of the bondage and the dysfunction that had held me for over 40 years plus. The serenity prayer became a gem. My meeting with other men every week became something I could not even live without, and that I treasured. I started seeing amazing miracles in my life. My wife started coming to recovery and owning it for herself. We both found out that we were codependents extraordinaire, that we were both sexual addicts. For the first time in my life, I could see light at the end of the tunnel of my denial, shame, guilt, and fear. For the first time, I began to laugh again, smile again, feel deep emotional ties to my wife again. For the first time, I was okay with telling the truth, not just what I felt you wanted to hear. I could be honest and open and transparent. God had begun a change in me. Okay? This program helped me immeasurably, and I was responsible for restoring my marriage. The accountability with other men is key. It has brought a sense of security for my wife and for me. I am accountable, and she knows that I'm accountable to other men of God who love me, care about me, and are brutally honest with me. I am no longer controlled by my fear, my lust, my adultery, pornography, masturbation, selfishness. I am no longer mastered by the lies and the secrets of my generation and my bloodline. I now know that doing the same thing and expecting a different result is truly insanity. Working the program helped me to get my bearings back in life, to get on course, and it helped me to put God first in everything I do. I no longer long to serve with a sense of obligation or duty, or to even be liked and accepted now. I serve because I am grateful for what God has done for me, my wife, my family. Okay? Working my program has allowed me to begin making amends with my brothers, my mothers, my sisters, my co-workers, to begin showing up responsibly as a husband, lover, and friend for my wife and kids. I am by no means where I should be or where I want to be, but I'm no longer where I used to be, in bondage, lost, alone, with no hope, pretending to be a real man. I am truly wild at heart. I am once again God's wild man, free to explore his will and purpose for me. The Bible says in John 8:36, if therefore the Son shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. Freedom is not free. Jesus paid the price for me. He paid it all, and he was my ultimate sacrifice. And tomorrow I'll finish it up for you guys. Darryl, it's good to see you. Merry Christmas, man. Okay? It's good to see everybody out there. It's good to see everybody out there, and it's good to communicate. Every time I share my testimony, and this is the first time on Facebook, tons of men are touched, and that's not the reason I do it. I do it because God has delivered me. He has set me free. He has restored everything the enemy has stolen away from me. And if he's stolen things from you, God will restore it to you with punitive damages. I am blessed and highly favored. This is an amazing Christmas for me. The gift of the light of the love of God, truth, honesty, sincerity, and the secrets being gone, the generational curses being broken, the bloodline that had made covenants with the dark side, with witchcraft, with pornography, with addictions, with having bastards and sweethearts and all that has been broken in my life. And if God can do it for me, he can do it for you. So today, tomorrow I'm gonna share with you guys testimony 7, the 7th part of my testimony and the final part of it. And therefore you'll know a little bit why I talk about the brain problem, why I talk about sexual addiction, why I talk about these things so passionately, because God has done something amazing in my life. And today I wish you all an amazing Christmas. This is gonna be the most blessed day in your life. Warriors for freedom out there, as I like to call you. Men out there, don't live in shame. Don't live in the guilt. Don't live below what God has called for you, but rather rise up to the circumstance. Rise up to the situation. Confront the enemy, because the devil is defeated and Jesus is Lord. No more religious. No more legalistic. No more judgmentalism. only freedom that comes through honesty and transparency. I want to encourage you today to find a man, find somebody and confess. And as we confess, we go free. As we begin to talk about these things, our brain, our stinking thinking gets cleared up. And guess what? We begin to experience the freedom and the joy that God has meant for us. The purpose that He's designed you for comes into fruition. And guess what? The devil is under your feet now. And you walk in blessings and you walk in freedom. I want you to have an amazing day. And I'll reach out to you tomorrow again. And share this with somebody else, okay? And guess what? Next year, the book's coming out, Where Are the Blue Skies? The story journey of a Christian sexual addict. The story journey of a Christian sexual addict is my life story, is the history of the men that I've traveled with in the last 8 years to freedom, and that I will move on with God's purpose and vision to share with others all the things that God has done in my life. So I encourage you today to get excited, because whom the Son has set free is free indeed. God bless you guys, man. Take care. See you later.